time to run through some of the top games in week 7. One thing I really want to talk about week 7, Shoob, this is like the third time ever that there's like three 5-0 matchups in the same week with ranked teams. And the first one up is Penn State and Michigan. Number 10 Penn State versus number 5 Michigan, sitting there at a line of -6.5. What's your take, Shoob? Because I'm going bold with this one.
The slate is pretty juicy this week. So Cap starting us off here with Penn State and Michigan. Michigan's 6.5-point favorite. You know what? I'm going to say that Michigan wins this game. And I know a lot of you probably have seen Michigan play the last few weeks and you've said, oh, Michigan, they're overrated. They're struggling against bad teams and whatnot. Well, we also said the same thing about UCLA. And then UCLA got into conference play against good teams. Then they finally sort of came out of their shell. So I don't think it's fair to just write off Michigan based off of what we've seen, knowing that, hey, teams are allowed to change as the season goes on here. Now, I will say I like Michigan to win. They're a touchdown favorite for a reason. I just think they're the slightly better team than Penn State. But I think this will be a low-scoring game. And Penn State did have a bye week to prepare for this one. So I do believe that Penn State will come out with a good game plan against the Wolverines. And Penn State will keep Michigan within a touchdown. So because it'll be a low-scoring defensive game, I think that it'll be potentially a 4-point game or less. And I think Michigan edges one out, but Penn State covers.
And like you said, bye week, and I think Penn State is a very undervalued team this year. I think they're going to give Michigan fits. This is also a day game. I believe it's the high noon kickoff with Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson. So this will be definitely a game worth watching, but I already told you, I kind of prefaced this. I'm going to go bold with this one. I'm going Penn State both ways.
I like it. I think a lot of people are going to be on Penn State this week, but I'm not going that route. I'm sticking with Michigan winning this game. But let's move on here. Minnesota against Illinois. This one is in Champaign. Illinois is ranked number 24. Welcome to the top 25, fighting Illini. First time in a while. Tommy DeVito's a little banged up. We don't know if he's going to be the quarterback or not. That is pretty big factor in this game because Sitkowski, the backup for Illinois, is not very good. So what's your take here?
I love Illinois, man. They're at home, and of course that QB component is huge. Illinois got a very solid defense. They got a good run game. Chase Brown, man. Credit your dynasty once more for instilling this offense and defense and performing well. They watched your videos and they are feeling themselves in the top 25 for the first time in a long time. I'd actually like to know what the statistics are on that. Last time they're ranked. But with that being said, this line at 6.5, Minnesota, it's entirely dependent on the quarterback, man. So is Mo Ibrahim back?
Yeah, Ibrahim's going to be back for Minnesota.
Okay. I don't feel 100% comfortable doing it, but I think with Ibrahim coming back, it will bring balance back to Minnesota's offense. And I'm going to go ahead and say Minnesota takes this both ways.
Interesting.
7-point game. Low scoring affair, but 7-point win.
I agree. It'll probably err on the side of a lower scoring affair. So I am going to agree with you on this one. I hate to do this to Illinois here, especially for the Dynasty followers that are probably watching this video. I know I feel like a traitor for doing this, but I have good reasoning, and obviously it's the quarterback situation. Like, we're recording this today on Tuesday afternoon, so as of right now, Tommy DeVito's status is uncertain. So am I just going to pick Illinois not knowing the status of the quarterback when it's a monumental difference? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not dumb. I got to pick Minnesota here and play it safe to win this game. And for that same reason, I'm going to pick Minnesota to cover the spread as well. I think Minnesota will have a bounce back performance here after that loss to Purdue a couple of weeks ago. I think Minnesota wins, but it's obviously has to do with the quarterback situation mainly. I think with Sitkowski, Illinois is in trouble in this one. So Gophers both ways.
Here's probably the most interesting pick coming up, man. This is where the money is made right here. This is probably the game of the week. Not probably. This is the game of the week. This is going to decide so much, Shoob. This is a statement game for both teams. Number 3, Alabama, -7.5 favorite versus Tennessee. Shoob, what is your take? This one is crazy.
Absolutely. This is the first time in basically since like you and I were in elementary school that Tennessee actually has a legit chance to beat Alabama. And I know Tennessee's been ranked before going into this matchup, and Tennessee's had some good seasons, like in 2016 with Butch Jones, but those were kind of fluky seasons there. And this season just has a different feel to it. Like this season for the Vols just has a different vibe, different feel going into this one. And the best way to describe it is it's confidence. Like Tennessee actually has confidence. The fan base has confidence. The team has confidence going into this one that they can actually hang in there and go toe to toe with Alabama, one of the best teams in the country. And I believe that will be the case. I cannot wait to see this game. I think it'll be an incredible atmosphere there in Knoxville. And this line here is sitting at 7.5. And this is very important because like a lot of these games this week, a lot of this has to do with quarterback health and Bryce Young's status. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday. If you haven't heard this before from us, we're recording this on Tuesday. Bryce Young's status is uncertain, but I think he's going
Shoob,
to
I just
play.
looked it up. Yeah, I just looked it up. Saban is hopeful and is leaning on a positive note of Bryce Young playing.
Okay, so that's the latest update. I would agree with that. I think Bryce Young will probably play. I mean, they have
It's too
to.
big of a game for him not to play.
Absolutely. And I think that spread sort of reflects Bryce Young playing. So I'm going to pick Bama to win this game because for all the hype with Tennessee, like I'm not saying the offense isn't good or anything like that. It obviously is, but their defense still has some questions for me. I still think Alabama is going to be able to put up points. Obviously, if Bryce Young's in, that's going to be a problem for Tennessee. But on the other side of the ball, this Alabama defense, they have a little bit of a weakness. There is a little bit of a chink in that armor. And it's that secondary. And Tennessee is a type of team that can expose that. Cedric Tillman, these Tennessee wide receivers, they can have some success against Alabama.
Hyatt too,
And
man.
exactly. And I think that they will have success. And I think this will be a very entertaining game, a close one. So I'm going to go with Alabama to win. But if you're giving me a touchdown and a hook, give me the Vols to cover that. I legitimately think that Tennessee will keep it close, even with Bryce Young.
Shoob, I'm telling you, Alabama to win, Tennessee to cover. I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, and it's gonna be a great game regardless. I would be absolutely shocked if this turned into just a killing, unless Bryce Young got hurt again or Hendon Hooker got hurt again, depending on quarterback health. But assuming both quarterbacks remain healthy for the duration of the game, this is going to be one hell of a game to watch.
Absolutely. I cannot wait for it.
All right. Off to our next one, a clash for first place in the Big 12 for the title of best team in the Big 12 to date. It's going to be argumentative, of course, but to date, based on their schedules. Number 8, Oklahoma State versus number 13, TCU. TCU is a 3.5-point favorite. This one is interesting. I'm actually not shocked that TCU comes out as a favorite in this one, Shub. But what's your take?
I'm going to go with TCU to win this game, and I'm also going to take TCU to cover. I think TCU is just the better team. I think they have impressed me so far this season. I'm really liking Max Duggan in this offense. Sonny Dykes has done a really good job there with TCU in year one as the head coach. And I think this will be a lot of scoring in this game. Two pretty solid offenses. Oklahoma State dealing with a lot of injuries, and I haven't really been that impressed with them in their last few games. They scrapped one out against Texas Tech last week. And I think Oklahoma State just play for play hasn't really been a better team than most of the competition they've faced this far. And I think TCU is just a little bit better of a team, and they're at home, which is a huge advantage here, of course. So I think TCU wins, and I say they cover this spread. I don't necessarily think it'll be a blowout, but I think TCU will cover here in addition to winning.
So here's what concerns me, Shub. One thing I've noticed about Oklahoma State in two games where they particularly struggled on defense, Central Michigan and Texas Tech. What do those two teams have in common?
Dual threat
It's
quarterbacks.
it's a dual threat quarterback. Oklahoma State cannot stop dual threat quarterbacks. They are getting rushed all over. And the only reason Oklahoma State probably won that Texas Tech game is because Texas Tech's quarterback couldn't run in the second half. He was injured. And because he was dicing them up, he was just taking off down the middle and gashing them for 10, 15 yards whenever they actually had good pass coverage. And otherwise, the receivers were wide open. And Max Duggan is much faster than any quarterback they have played to date. He's a great athlete. And not in addition to that, Max Duggan is coming alive as a passer. He's playing out of his mind. I mean, he's having a great season. And for that reason, I'm with you, Shoob. TCU outright. Uh, no disrespect to the Pokes. I think they're still Big 12 contenders. But I don't see their defense, man. Like seeing how they have played against other dual threats this year and being that Max Duggan is the best dual threat the quarterback they've played from a passing and rushing perspective, both. Oh man, oh buddy, if they don't make big adjustments, they are in for a rude awakening over there in Fort Worth.
Yeah, absolutely. But either way, I think it'll be a lot of scoring in this one. So it'll be a shootout, I would expect. So now let's move on. Another ranked matchup, ranked matchups galore, as we've been saying. NC State going on the road to face Syracuse. And frankly, even though this is, a ranked matchup, it doesn't really feel like it's that high profile of a ranked matchup, in my humble opinion. NC State pretty fortunate to win one against FSU last week. And then you got Syracuse here, who is pretty fortunate to be 5-0, in my opinion. So what's your take here?
So yeah, man. I mean, like you said, NC State got a little bit lucky. Still one of the better teams in the ACC. And then Syracuse. It's just, I guess we have that potential luck factor with NC State still being kind of ranked at 15, and then Syracuse just they're undefeated, but it's just not like a sexy name, Like it doesn't stick out to you. You don't see them play a lot, and I feel like that's why this matchup doesn't stick out as much in regards to just college football. But hats off to Syracuse. Hats off to the middle tier orange teams, Illinois and Syracuse, both having great years in their respective conferences. But that line is sitting there at Syracuse minus 3.5. We don't know the status of Devin Leary going into this game. I'm going to go ahead and go with Syracuse on the spread and outright, just because I don't know if Devin Leary is going to play. And truth be told, I don't know what NC State has at their backup quarterback position. And Devin Leary's just been their guy for so long. There's obviously not experience in that second wave at the quarterback position. And so that worries me against a pretty solid Syracuse defense. So it's going to be tough sledding for NC State. Now they can still win this game, but give me the Cuse, man. Give me the orange.
Right. So as soon as I saw this line, I was thinking, wow, that's pretty good value on NC State. But like you just said, Devin Leary, his status is uncertain going into that game. Again, if you've been skipping ahead in this video and looking at these games here, we are recording this on Tuesday. So as of right now, Leary's status is uncertain. So for that reason, without Leary, it's kind of hard to judge what type of team NC State has offensively. I think either way, it's going to be a low-scoring defensive game because Wolfpack defense is really good. But Syracuse is also coming off of a bye week. So Syracuse and that improved offense, I think they'll be able to score a handful of points here. And if Leary was playing, I'd probably take NC State. But because his status is uncertain, I mean, again, what can you expect me to do here? We have a disadvantage picking these on Tuesday, not knowing the quarterback status. So for right now, I got to play it safe and take Syracuse to win, assuming that Leary isn't going to play. And to sort of hedge here, I'm going to take NC State to cover this spread, the plus 3.5 points
Oh,
there.
you chicken. You chicken.
Hey, if Leary plays, I'm all over NC State. I'd pick NC State to win this game. But if he doesn't play, you can't blame me for doing this, man. Hey, give me a field goal and a hook there. I'll take that. I'll take that spread.
Now I really hope Syracuse wins outright.
I think our results are going to be pretty
covers.
whacked up this week just because we're recording this on Tuesday and all these quarterbacks are hurt this year and we don't know their status. So that's
luckily,
really going to.
Yeah, luckily this isn't the stuff we're putting money on, so that's all good. This is just
well, I do have money on NC State.
So, oh, do you? Oh, yeah. I did not touch that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hedge that.
All right, man. Arkansas minus 1.5 versus BYU. BYU's playing a pretty competitive schedule. I think they kind of learned their lesson from the past. So, what's your take on this, Shoob?
So for this one, this is a very interesting game because, well, guess what? We have another quarterback that is hurt in this game. There's just quarterbacks hurt everywhere. Is KJ Jefferson going to play? As of today, we're recording this on Tuesday. It seems as if KJ Jefferson is probably going to play against BYU. So I would expect that that's why this line is sitting there with Arkansas favored by 1.5. And frankly, these are two teams that sort of have lost some steam from the beginning of the season. Arkansas started the season ranked. BYU was ranked up there too. They kind of had their high points towards the beginning of the season, and they've fallen off pretty quickly. So it is at BYU too, which is very interesting. So normally I would probably pick Arkansas in this situation, but you know what? It's at BYU. I think BYU had a good fight last week in the second half against Notre Dame. Jaren Hall kind of had a couple bad mistakes last week against Notre Dame. If he plays a good game, a clean game, I think BYU is a really good shot to win this game because Arkansas's defense isn't really that great as we would have expected. So I'm going to say BYU bounces back here and wins this game. And by default, picking them to cover the spread here. I'm liking BYU here, but I'm not very confident in it. Even with KJ Jefferson playing, I'm going to give a little bit of an edge to the Cougs, but not confident in it at all.
It depends on KJ, man. Like if KJ plays, I'd probably consider taking Arkansas. But like you said, man, it's a home game, and BYU fans really are showing out for their team this year. I mean, we saw it last week over there in Las Vegas. They really showed out for that Notre Dame game. Really impressive stuff. Jaren Hall is a good quarterback. This is another coin flip game. Look at that line. If KJ Jefferson plays, it's going to be an Arkansas play. But since I don't know the status of KJ Jefferson, I'm going to have to go with you, BYU both.
Oh, man. See, I'm saying BYU even with KJ Jefferson, but you're saying BYU without KJ Jefferson. So
I think if KJ plays, I'm taking Arky. But
see,
I
one of
don't.
us is going to either hit this bet or lose this bet for the right reasons and then the wrong reasons. But it is what it is. Let's move on here. LSU going on the road to face Florida. LSU's kind of had Florida's numbers in the last few years. So what's your take on this game? It's two teams that are both 4-2. What do you got here?
My first take is I am shocked that Florida is favored in this game. I'll say that much. And I think it's because they're at home. Florida's not a terrible team by any estimation, but they've just been so wacky and inconsistent. And you could say the same for LSU, but I I just feel like LSU is going to bounce back in this game. I think Anthony Richardson's going to make some crucial mistakes in this game. And I like the Tigers, man. I'm going both ways with LSU.
Interesting. So this one is also very tough to read for me. I believe it's going to be a close game either way. It's very coin flippy. I was also a little surprised. I got money when LSU was plus 3.5 there. Now the line's inside of a field goal. But now it's inside of a field goal. We can't hedge here in this game. So I'm going to go against you here. I'm going to take Florida to win here. I think Florida finally breaks the streak. I'm not confident in this one at all. Florida played pretty poorly last week against Missouri, but still won. LSU played very poorly last week against Tennessee. Though I do still like this LSU team's outlook the rest of the year. I think Florida will play a good game. I would expect to bounce back. They normally don't play poorly 2 weeks in a row. So I'm going to take Florida here in the swamp, but I'm not very confident in this one at all.
All right, time to move on to the ACC number 4 Clemson Tigers taking on Florida State and Tallahassee. What is your takeaway, Shoob?
Oof, man. If Florida State had simply just, if Jordan Travis had just not thrown that interception there at the end and Florida State kicks a field goal for the win last week against NC State, Florida State's probably a ranked team. And this game has a little bit more hype than what it's getting. It is in Tallahassee. The spread is only 3.5. Clemson's only favored by a field goal there and a hook. So it's very interesting. So I think Clemson is absolutely on upset alert. The difference here is Florida State is a little banged up here. Jordan Travis hasn't necessarily been playing well as of late. He did struggle against a very good NC State defense. And then Clemson, though they still are banged up in their secondary, it's still a very decent defense. So I think Clemson's going to come into this game and they're going to beat Florida State in Tallahassee. And I think only 3.5 on this spread. I think Clemson covers. I think Clemson maybe wins by a touchdown. But I don't necessarily
I thought you
think
were about
that.
to chicken out again.
No, I don't think Florida State's necessarily going to lay an egg here and get blown out, but I think Clemson will win by a touchdown. I think Clemson has been slightly better than I think most people would have thought this year. DJU playing a little bit better than people thought. So I have actual confidence in this Clemson pick here and on the spread.
And I'm with you. Clemson both ways, man. I mean, defense wins championships. Clemson has the better defense. Both teams have respectable offenses. DJU's playing better as the season goes along, and he's shown some development from last year. I don't see why he can't right the ship and play well again. Florida State's got some wide receivers, man. They've been playing pretty well. Johnny Wilson. I mean, there's a lot of weapons. Jordan Travis, but again, who's going to make the most stops? That's who's going to win the game. I like Clemson. Their defense is a little bit better.
All right, now another ranked matchup, and Kentucky, a team that a lot of people say shouldn't be ranked, but let's be fair here. They did lose Levis, and yet again, another quarterback that we were unsure about. Again, all these videos are timestamped, so if you haven't watched the rest of this vid, we apologize if you've watched the whole thing. We keep repeating ourselves. It is Tuesday, but we were recording this, and as of right now, Levis's status is still up in the air. I think most people probably expect that he'll play here against
Even
Mississippi
so,
State, but
Shoob, he's got a broken finger, man. So, like, how well is he going to be able to throw the ball if he comes back?
he has taken some shots that this Kentucky offensive line has been a bit of a disaster this year, and it's finally starting to rear its ugly head. It's kind of inevitable that Levis got hurt, in my opinion, but yeah, this is going to be a tough spot here for Kentucky, especially after losing to South Carolina at home last week. This spread here, Mississippi State -7. I got this at 2.5, believe it or not, at Sunday.
And
Very
that's
happy about that.
robbery. That's
That is
highway
robbery.
robbery. Because,
So
one, it's no secret where I'm going. Since I said that's robbery, I'm taking Mississippi State to win, obviously. And sitting that this line is at 7 is a push. Mississippi State's offense is highly prolific. Kentucky without Will Levis, not very good on the offensive end. And I will say this, even if Will Levis plays, man, it's really hard to throw a football with a broken finger. And you are really limiting your accuracy and probably the power that you can get on that ball, too. I think that's going to hurt Levis if he plays. And so I'm going to go ahead and take Mississippi both ways because at the very least, I can see the push.
wow, so you got Miss State going both ways here. So again, it's Tuesday afternoon that we're recording this, and Levis's status is looking a little bit more promising. So I think that he will play. It's looking more likely than not. I'm with you here, man. Mississippi State is humming right now. I still do think that Kentucky will have a bit of a bounce back performance. I still do think that Kentucky will put up a relatively good fight. It'll be a competitive game, and let's not discount here. Mississippi State is prone to some stinkers here. That's kind of been Mike Leach's teams. Every now and then they just lose a game they shouldn't lose. That LSU loss that Mississippi State had at the beginning of the year just really looks super puzzling if you just look at their season in the aggregate here, because they have looked very good outside of that game, and they just sort of spiraled out of control in that game. So you can't really discount that possibility. And it just kind of feels like one of those games where Mississippi State could just spiral out of control out of nowhere and just put up a stinker and lose this game. But I'm not going to bank on that. I'm going to bank on Mississippi State continuing the good play here. They've been on a roll, so I'm going to take them to win and cover as well. But wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong about this one, because like I said, for some reason, I just got a weird feeling in the back of my head that Mississippi State's just going to throw up an egg and lose this game. But I'm not going to pick it, though.
I don't feel strongly enough about it, then.
I don't, but I can't discount it from prop happening. Mike Leach teams, they do that a lot. So
Well,
we'll see.
let's go over to the West and let's see if your corpse is still going to be disintegrating to the ground here. For those of you who haven't watched our last 2 weeks of predictions, Shoob is routinely going against the USC Trojans, or has been in the past, until he said his corpse is disintegrated, dying on this hill. Shoob, are we still dying on this hill this week? Number 7 USC going to Utah, 3.5.
The answer is yes. I'm still dying on this hill, and I promise that if USC just thoroughly outplays Utah, doesn't have crazy turnovers that allow them to win this game, and just down for down, play for play, just thoroughly are the better team than Utah, I will stop fading USC. But as of right now, USC's winning streak, it's not going to last if they don't make any changes and don't improve, because we say it all the time with teams like Iowa. It happens every year. Last year with Michigan State. These teams, you play like this all season long, it's not going to last. Eventually, you're going to run into a good team, and it's going to get ugly. And this week, I think that it won't necessarily be a blowout by any means, but I think Utah will bounce back here. Now, there are still a lot of red flags with Utah. Obviously, that's a big loss they took last week to UCLA, and Utah is a little banged up too. They lost Keithy for the season a few weeks ago and whatnot. It's not necessarily this most confident about this one, but I think Utah at home is a good setting here for Utah. I do believe that they will bounce back and get this W, and I think USC's undefeated season comes to an end.
Hey, it's also a night game, man, and you know that stadium's going to be packed.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be a great atmosphere. Utah still has a Pac-12 championship to play for here. So I expect the crowd to play a huge factor in here. And I still do think Utah is just on paper a slightly better team than USC. But as far as the spread, it is kind of tough because I do think it'll be a close game. I legit think this will be a great game. Arguably could be the best one of Saturday. So I'm very tempted to take USC on the spread here, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to say Utah wins by 4 or more and covers the spread.
All right, Shoob. I mean, I've been higher on USC than you have, but I also in the past few weeks, man, I've seen a lot of red flags with USC as well. I don't think they're as good as their record shows. Don't get me wrong, I still think they're a top 15 team, but I don't think they're as good as the record shows. I think they're definitely deserving of a loss. But with that being said, man, tough away matchup against a team who is one of the better defensive teams in your conference. Not only that, they're one of the better offensive teams in your conference as well, and they're in the top half. And so with that being said, I like Utah for the win as well. Home cooking, night game, prime time. But USC, we talked about this a little bit in our last pod, has a lot of this Iowa turnover voodoo going on. And I can totally see that coming into play this year. Like some teams just get a lot of luck. And this year, USC has been no exception when it comes to penalties, when it comes to turnovers, wherever the case may be. Whenever they need something in a crucial situation, they always seem to get it. And especially that comeback they had against Oregon State, how improbable that was, and yet they still got it. So for that reason, I feel like USC is, even if USC is getting dominated, I feel like they still will only be down by like 3 points somehow. And for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and hedge and take USC on the spread.
Oh man, you're hedging and banking on the voodoo. You're banking on the Iowa voodoo to come into play here.
Some teams just, I don't know what it is about some teams, man, but some teams just like do some black magic in the locker room before they come out. And Iowa and USC have been those teams this year.
Yeah, that's for sure. USC's got a very high turnover margin this season, but we've seen teams like this. We saw Iowa last year. Once they got to a Big Ten championship game and played Michigan, they got blown out of the water. Michigan State last year, once they ran into Ohio State, they got blown out. So I think USC is going to have it coming for him here pretty soon. But will it be Utah? We shall see.
Thank you for watching today's video. If you like this, give this a thumbs up, leave us a comment so we can comment back to you guys and let us know what you think. Also reach out to us on Twitter, Xan Shoob on Twitter. Give us a follow, we'll give you a follow back, and also comment to us there. We're really engaging with our fans over there. In addition to that, please check out the podcast if you enjoy this. This is only about a third of what we cover on a day-to-day basis, and we have a lot of new content for you guys coming soon.
Go and check out the pod. If you have Apple Podcasts, go ahead and check it out. We give a lot more content, in-depth breakdowns of teams that you don't get here on YouTube. Please go ahead and check out our podcast. A lot more.
Link in description.
Links in description. See y'all later. Have a great day.